The Springfield Armory 1911 Emissary. Let's check it out. John Moses Browning designed the 1911, and for the past 110 years, this firearm design has proven itself on the battlefield, in self-defense situations, and on the range, just as a very accurate firearm. 1911s are more popular today than they ever have been, and a lot of upgrades have been made. But there's one of the things about the Springfield Armory Emissary. It takes a self-defense profile. This gun's excellent for self-defense, and yet it still has a lot of custom features and upgrades to make it even more efficient. And one of the big things about the 1911 is, in a world of polymer frame striker fire pistols, the 1911 is one of the safest semi-automatics that you can carry. And we're going to look at some advantages of 1911, but the main thing we're going to do is focus on the Emissary, because this gun has a ton of features and upgrades. And man, it just shoots like a dream. And we really appreciate Springfield Armory for sending the Emissary for this review. Now guys, when it comes to the 1911, they have been in service with the U.S. military from 1911 up till about 1985. And again, they still serve in a lot of special ops units, because the 1911 has just proven itself. Now there's a lot of 1911s out on the market. This is the Emissary. There's a lot of custom features that have been done to this, but they all lead more toward a self-defense pistol. Let's go ahead and make sure the gun is unloaded. We're going to drop our magazine. It's an 8+1 stainless steel magazine, and you also have two of them. They're made by Metgar, which is one of the premier magazine companies, and magazines are one of the most important parts about keeping your gun reliable. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Check to make sure the chamber is empty, and it is. Now this is a single action semi-automatic pistol, and that means that when you pull the trigger, it doesn't actuate the hammer. It's just there. When you enter a fresh magazine loaded and you pull the slide back, it enters one round to the chamber, and then with every subsequent shot, you're going to have a round fire, up to 8 rounds, or when the magazine is empty. What Springfield Armory has done with the Emissaries is kind of brought it up to a peak performing 1911. I mean, guys, seriously, the original 1911s, they stood the test of time. I mean, they started out again World War I, all the way up through Vietnam and up into 1985, and they were great firearms, and they were very effective. But there are some things about this design that can be improved, and that's one of the things they did with the Springfield. Now, at this point, we're going to just look at the Springfield, but we're going to kind of go back and compare it to this original 1911 style and give you some ideas of why these changes are there. I've shot 1911s. Really, some of the first firearms where I really trained was with 1911s. And it's one of those guns that just feels right in my hand. One of the things about the Springfield Armory, though, is these are forged slide, forged receiver or frame, and also forged barrel. And forging is better than casting. It just makes it a more solid firearm. The steel is actually more compressed, and it's better for milling, it's better for finishing the firearm. And so that in itself is a plus. It does have a stainless steel frame, a high carbon steel slide, and of course the barrel is stainless steel. The barrel is also a bull barrel design, so you can see it's got a pretty large, thicker barrel. This aids in accuracy, but it also gives a little bit more weight to the end of the firearm, which just helps with recoil mitigation. It does have a full-length guide rod, We'll take a look at that when we disassemble it. It does away with the bushing system. The barrel is crowned, which is a gradual slope. Very nice to have that, because if this is a flat surface, then it can get dinged and the rifling can really cause you to have problems with accuracy. So this really helps with accuracy. And when it comes to the grips, it's one of the things about the 1911, it just has a very natural thin grip to it. And so it really allows for you to shoot this. It's just very pointable. Feel like you've got a good solid grip on the pistol. One of the things about this particular pistol is it has G10 grips that are really thin. These are thinner than your typical 1911 grips. They are VZ grips, and they have a grenade pattern on here. Very well done. I mean, it gives you a very good gripping surface. But what's most important about your grip with any pistol is the front strap and the back strap, because that's where you put most of your pressure. And if you'll notice, the front strap has been mimicked with that grenade pattern that comes all around the front. And then also with the mainspring housing, you've got that grenade pattern. And I'll tell you, when you put this in your hand, I mean, you feel like you've got a solid full grip on the pistol, and it's not going anywhere. Also, we have a high ride beaver tail with the memory notch, and this allows you to get a really high grip. It allows for the bore axis to be a little bit better where you get your hand up high, and it makes a huge difference. I'll tell you guys, when I was doing a lot of competitive shooting, I was shooting with a high ride beaver tail, and it was awesome. I switched it out one time and brought one of my government models out, and this beaver tail makes a huge difference in recoil mitigation. It just really allows for you to get, again, that really high grip. Also, it keeps that hammer from coming back and biting you. Now, this has the commander style hammer, and it's just oval, so it's not as long as the Tang hammer, and so it just nestles in that high ride grip safety. And then as you pull it, it pops. Now, one of the things about a 1911 is that they are very safe to carry. And one of the big reasons is this right here. This is the grip safety, and it has to be depressed for the firearm to fire. Now, you do have a frame safety right here, but we're going to pull the hammer back because we have to engage the safety. Of course, we have our safety. I'm going to take the safety off. It still won't fire until I get a full grip on the grip safety. And so you have multiple safeties here to keep this from firing. And the safety is extended, and so the frame safety, and so it gives you actually a place, if you want to, you can actually rest your thumb here, or you can put it up under it. A lot of times they have ambidextrous, especially with these extended frame safeties. Personally, of course, I'm not left-handed, I like it on one side. It just keeps it a little trimmer, but it does give you a little bit of an extension. The serrations on the slide are widened, but it allows you to get a full grip on it. I mean, it just comes back really easily. There are some serrations here at the top, or just some lightning cuts, and they're not really serrations, but they do help a little bit in doing press checks. But with that, we have the tri-top cuts, and this is really unique, but this is what a lot of custom pistols have gone to. It just cuts some of the weight off the top. But then we have a serrated rib all the way across the top, and this is going to keep glare down. And then we have the sights. Now, I am a big fan of these U-notch sights, and you do have the white outline. Then we have a tritium bead with a luminescent ring around it. These sights are incredibly easy to pick up at the range. I love this configuration. Also, the front sight is dovetailed in, and of course the rear sight is as well. And so a lot of times on your original 1911s, you know, it was staked in from underneath, and so this just gives you a little more security with that dovetail. Then also we have a little bit of a cocking shelf. So I can cock this on my belt, I can do one-handed reloads, cock it on my boot, on a table, whatever, and that is important to me. I like to have the ability for a one-handed reload. Another big thing is the Picatinny rail system, or the accessory rail, and we have 3 Picatinny slots. They fit right up under the frame, and then we have a squared off trigger guard, and we have a flat trigger that's actually extended just a touch, but this is a really nice trigger. We're going to look at that, but it is flat face trigger. Your magwell does have beveled cuts, so it allows for those magazines to go in a lot smoother, and it has a nice base plate, so when you drop that magazine on concrete, it's going to save it. And the one that really came the closest to the original 1911 with the military had been using is this Charles Daley Field Grade 1911. And these are really nice. In fact, I did a review on it. They're made in Italy. It's just a really nice, very well finished firearm. Again, we have 8 rounds for it, and the chamber is empty. Now, one of the things about traditionally, they started out with 7 rounds. It did have a different type follower that has a little bit of a lip, and those are known to possibly cause problems. And so having these better followers is one of the first things. But having this polymer follower is a better option, and it's just going to give you just more reliability. And so a lot of these changes have come over the past 110 years from the original 1911, which has really thin serrations right here. Now you can grab them and they'll pull back fine. But it's not quite the same as it is with these larger serrations. Obviously, there's no accessory rail. We have a little nub here for your grip safety. And guys, if you have really large hands, that can come back, and that hammer can bite just the web of your hand. Now, my hands are about medium, so I don't usually have that problem. But also, when the pistol is coming back, you don't have that wider surface. You don't have it coming up where you can really get a higher grip. It allows you, it just kind of stops you from having that really high grip. Now the frame safety just has a small nub, which is really some of their earlier safeties. Now they have it where it comes out into a gradual piece right here. But it's definitely not as effective as this, more of a gas pedal, because you can really get that safety easily. The sights obviously are hugely different, and you're getting just those combat sights that are very low profile and very minimal. Whereas, of course, the sights on the Emissary are just top notch. You're also retaining your barrel bushing system with your guide rod spring plug, and while these are fine, this is much easier to disassemble, and honestly will give you much smoother feeding. The grips are a big part of it, just smooth side at the back and just serrations on the mainspring housing. With the Emissary, again, we're getting a lot of texturing, and this is a very smooth finish, and you know, guys, I'm used to it, but this is a huge upgrade. And here you can see that your standard 1911 grips are considerably thicker than these really thin profile grips. Of course, you can see the flat face trigger compared to the traditional trigger that's curved, and we have a curved trigger guard. One thing too about the original 1911s is they did come with a 7-round magazine, and it's pretty much just industry standard now to go with the 8-rounders. But while now this is still a great gun, it's still very viable. I mean, I love shooting it. This just brings it up to another level with the Emissary. I mean, you're just getting it to its peak performance. And that can be very important in a self-defense situation, having full confidence. And of course, at the range, it's just going to give you a better experience. Weight on the Emissary, 2 pounds, 10.6 ounces. Weight on your standard 1911, 2 pounds, 6.8 ounces. Now we're going to check the trigger pull action. Again, you have to have your grip safety engaged. A little bit of take up right here. Man, that is one nice break. Reset right there. I mean, it is very minimal. Man, that's a nice trigger. Check the trigger pull weight with our Lyman trigger gauge from Brownells. 4 pounds, 0.3 ounces. 4 pounds, 0.4 ounces. Extremely consistent. We appreciate Fiocchi for sponsoring the ammo. All made right here in the USA, one of the largest manufacturers of ammunition in the country. And we're going to be shooting some 230 grain ball. Guys, sometimes I'll do my range shooting first before I do the full review, but this time I did the tabletop everything before I shot the pistol. And I'm going to tell you guys, I've shot 1911s for years. Really kind of grew up on 1911. But with this grip, with this grenade pattern in the front, and then with it on the mainspring housing and the grips, it really feels like this thing is attached to your hand. And it's not uncomfortable. I mean, it was really a pleasure to shoot. I felt like I really had a good grip on the firearm. Now, shooting 1911 in a full steel pistol in 45 ACP, it still has a little bit of recoil, but it's not too bad, especially with the bull barrel. But that grip really gave me a lot of confidence. The bull barrel definitely has that weight on the end and the accessory rail. So there's a lot of weight going on here, but when you're really trying to get accuracy and you're not carrying this on your hip all day, it's a whole different ball game. The controls are 1911, feels like going back home. I love that high ride beaver tail. It was flawless, no malfunctions whatsoever. Took it in a lot of different positions, but one thing about 1911 is that it is very pointable. I love that. Because it's thin, it just seems to wherever you bring it around, it's right there on target. And that's one of the things I love about it. And it allows you to really get on target and get back on target quicker. You know, as far as a home defense firearm, or, you know, if you want to carry a full-size 1911 on your hip, this is going to make an excellent self-defense option. And again, these are very safe. With that grip safety and cocked and locked, you're ready to go. But let me say this, guys. Whenever you're carrying a gun for self-defense, keep one in the chamber. And guys, the U-notch sights, I mean, they just really show up. That ring around the sight, whether it's bright sunlight or not, and then you have the tritium inside. So it gives you kind of the best of both worlds, which I really like. I like the white outline in the back as well. This just really brings in your eye, and it allows you to track when you're shooting, to get those second and third follow-up shots, because the sight just lines up every time. Now, as far as disassembly goes, again, we'll check to make sure the gun is unloaded. Now, right here is your takedown notch, and what we're going to do is to bring back the slide, and right here is your takedown little lever. When you get it lined up right like this, just push out from the rear, and then just pull this right out. And this is your takedown lever. Now we're going to just allow the slide to move forward. Now, this is totally different than when you're doing a standard 1911. Now, you do need a small little tool, which is included. It's just a small little bent piece of metal, little rod. You can use a paper clip as well. You want to take your thumb and put it on the back of the guide rod and just move it forward, just like this. And then there's a small hole that'll appear, and you take your little tool, you put it in there, and you let it recess back in. Now just go ahead and pull your full-length guide rod out, just like this, and it's captive. You want to keep that captive though, because this is again under spring tension. Then we take our barrel, drop our link, just push our barrel forward, and it comes out of the front of the slide. And guys, that's it. I mean, that's the way you break it down. With your standard 1911, by the time you get your barrel bushing and you start messing around with it, it's a lot more difficult. Now this is again a full-length guide rod, and you have this metal sleeve here that keeps the recoil spring intact. And then, of course, you have your standard guide rod system right here at the back. And so this is really a smooth design. It allows for a much consistent operation, especially the way you have your little small guide rod in your standard 1911. Then you have your spring that fits to a plug. So there's a lot of play. This just allows it to be much smoother. Here we have some ID marks, but otherwise just a very beautifully finished firearm. And again, this slide is forged. The barrel is a bull barrel. It's going to be thicker, and this is going to allow it to mate up to the end of the slide to give you better accuracy. Nice polished feed round. Here with the stainless steel frame, it is weighty, but it's really well done. And of course, it does have that accessory rail, which adds a little bit to the front of your frame. And you'll notice that it's beefed up just a little bit here toward the end where your accessory rail is on both sides. It just has a little bit of an increase in metal. Typically with your 1911, that would be just thinned down, the same as your standard part of the frame here. Now for reassembly, make sure your link's in the down position. Go ahead and slide it in through the front of the slide. A lot different than our current polymer frame striker fire pistols. Take your link and push it forward. Now this rides on the barrel, this little divot here, so you want to reinsert it that same way. Just like this. Okay, bring your recoil assembly forward, because you need to be able to pull this out. And so once we get this out, we just go ahead and pull that pin back, and slowly with your thumb, just drop it right here against the back of the barrel. Now your link is going to come down, and that's where your takedown pin is going to go through. So we're going to go ahead and put it onto the pistol. Now when I pull in my slide back, I'm going to start looking for my barrel link, and there it is. It's lined up. So I'm going to go ahead and take my takedown piece, and I'm going to put it in here. Then I'm going to bring it back to that notch. Now here you don't want to scratch your frame, so be careful to pop your detent like that, and you pop it into place. If you make a mark here, it's called an idiot scratch, and you definitely don't want to do this on such a nice 1911. Go ahead and check for function, and we're good to go. It's definitely a little different than your standard 1911, but honestly, it's easier. There's a lot going on with the front here when you're breaking down a 1911. I really like the full-length guide rod. Now guys, when it comes to price, we're looking at manufacturer suggested retail $1,279. And for all the features that this has, that is very reasonable. I mean, this really brings it up to the 21st century from a design that was made by John Moses Browning back in 1911. That speaks volumes in itself. And the quality of the forged components, a lot of the different features in this, I mean, it really is an incredible firearm. So guys, if you're looking for a 1911, I highly recommend Springfield Armory with the forged receiver, forged slide, forged barrels. They're just very durable firearms. But if you really want to take it up a notch, or if you're already a 1911 guy, the Emissary is going to impress you. A lot of great features, a lot of innovative features, especially with the slide, but then of course with your standard upgrades all throughout the handgun. Again, taking self-defense and mating it with custom features, it's just a win-win. Then you add 45 ACP, this thing's a hoss. And we really appreciate Springfield Armory again for sending the Emissary for this review. Rubber Dummies is one of the best training tools on the market, and you get a 10% discount using Suit00 when you click the link down in the description. Be strong, be of good courage. God bless America, long live the Republic. And since that time for the packing. Right here is your takedown notch. Let's see, wait a minute. Just like that. Nope, that's not just like that. Where you don't break the bank. I don't want to do that. Now this is not, this was the early type safety. They do have a, man, this thing is such a pleasure to shoot. Okay. Now, you know, I've been shooting this whole time, and then my neighbor decides to start weed eating right now. I mean, he needs to weed eat. I understand that. But his timing sucks.